Hi, my name is Harrelson Stanley, and I founded a company called Nano Hone in Pepperell, Massachusetts. Well, I worked for a Japanese company for 16 years, manufacturing and distributing Japanese sharpening stones. So I learned a lot about the industry. But prior to that, I studied Japanese lacquering in Japan for about 12 years. And I learned a lot about thin film deposition, laying down multiple layers of lacquer and polishing each layer out. I learned a lot about vacuum technology. And I kind of pulled together all those things from my early training and my experience with the Japanese stone manufacturer to create my own company, because I really wanted to make my own products. I wanted to make things that fit the need the way I see it. Well, I was a student at the North Bennett Street School in Boston, and that's the oldest trade school in the United States, and I was in the furniture making department. And I guess towards the end of the program, I went and I bought a Japanese chisel. And I just thought it was amazing. The way it was designed, the way it was, how it felt in my hands, the handle, and how easy it was to sharpen. It was really designed to be sharpenable. And that made a big impression on me really quickly. And then subsequently there was a workshop in the Bear Brook State Forest in Suncook, New Hampshire. And people came from all over the world to take part in this, and 5 Japanese craftsmen came, and they taught us how to build a little tea house. And we worked on the doors, we worked on the roof, we worked on, the beams and the joinery. We carried rocks. I was young. Oh my God, I moved big rocks for those people. It was really quite a thing. And that was just a huge experience, camping out and being with all these people and playing with all these different tools. Of course, I bought more tools. And during the seminar, one of the teachers, I think in retrospect, kind of jokingly said, "Why don't you come and work for me in my shop in Japan?" And I looked at him square in the eye. I said, "Mr. Kageyama, I'm coming to work for you." And another student, a friend of mine, Matt Connerton, he just took a beautiful, expensive saw right out of his toolbox. He brought it over and he said, "Take this with you." And that was it. I was committed. I had to go to Japan, and I went over there with the idea of staying for 3 years. And 3 years turned into 5, and 5 into 10, 10 to 12. And, I just couldn't get enough of it. I was learning all the time, and it was just a real exciting time for me. Well, before starting Nano Hone, I was working for a Japanese sharpening stone manufacturer. And I worked for them for 16 years. Well, that's a great question. I think they were focused on marketing in volume. And so making tweaks to the product was difficult because we were pushing large numbers of product out there. So we didn't really have the luxury of making fine adjustments very much along the way. And any adjustment was very expensive. It meant new packaging. It meant new this, new that. It would be a new product line to put out. So for me, I want to have a little more flexibility. I want to be able to look at a problem and say, well, we can solve that. And let's give it some of our attention and let's figure out how to solve it. And since I don't have enormous volume, I can do that. I can make changes, bring out a new product line. Well, the industry is changing rapidly. We're getting more and more blacksmiths out here. Murray Carter is one of the leaders of the industry. He started early. But after Murray, many blacksmiths have come out and started working, and they've given up their full-time careers to become full-time knife makers, and they're really everywhere, all over the country, and there's thousands of them. It's really grown to where we, even have TV shows now about knife making. So I think the time is right to start, matching abrasive technology with these modern steels, all these ideas that are coming out. Well, we're getting steels that are really hard to cut. Some of the steels are called powder metals. They're mixing metallic powders and baking them at very high temperature to create really interesting steels. And those things never existed before. That's totally new. So in order to abrade them and sharpen them, we're going to need better technology to do that. That's where Nano Hone comes in. I want to be out there, really designing the abrasives to help those knife makers, sharpen their knives faster, and really not just faster, but be able to achieve the results that they're hoping for in their mind's eye. Well, there are lots of books out there and lots of ways to to look at these problems. But I think Murray and I working together this week, we really noticed that we worked separately for many years. This is really the first time that we've actually worked together here, during this week of filming. And I think it was really impressive for both of us how we both came to the same conclusions, the exact same conclusions about a myriad of problems that come about in sharpening. And so I think that experience and making mistakes along the way and refining our techniques, and the fact that we both ended up at almost identical places is really exciting for me. It shows how experience is a teacher. It really does. I knew he was a knife maker. I knew he had lived in Japan and apprenticed over there and been very successful as an apprentice. And I think I met Murray for the first time at the Blade Show down in Atlanta, probably 13 or 14 years ago. And, he was doing his thing and I was doing mine, and we really didn't have, it wasn't the right time yet. And then very recently, we got together. We've talked on the phone a couple times over the years, but we got together at the Blade Show this past summer and started talking. And I think we both realized this has got some energy. We can work together. We can do some stuff. And we started making a solid plan, and let's get together and do it. They're beautiful. And above all, Murray understands thin. And I've always been a big fan of thin knives. Thick knives are hard to push through material. And I've always felt that in woodworking, in really pretty much any area where you've got to cut something, what you want is the thinnest edge you can get away with for that material. And part of that is your skill level, because if you don't have a lot of skill and you use a very thin knife to cut something that is more rigid or harder, then you're very likely to break the edge, where someone who has more practice can use that very same thin edge and slice away the wood or the material without damaging. They're aware that you can't deflect that very thin edge. So, Murray understands thin. He likes to make edges thin. He likes to work behind the edge, and we both really agree on that point. So for that reason, I'm really attracted to Murray's knives. I think one of the first things to think about in hand sharpening is surface control. So most people are worried about the edge itself. I'm a little more concerned with the condition of the surface of the stone. So if your concentration is on the condition of the stone, and you constantly keep the stone clean, flat, you groom the surface of the stone so that it cuts optimally, then when you take the knife to it and you try to follow a certain angle and you try to cut on that surface, you're able to achieve the shape that you have in your mind. And that's really what I'm doing, because you can't see that edge. Even if you hold it up and look at it, you really can't see it. You can see the outside shape of it, but you really can't see down into it. So you have to have that idea of what it's going to look like in your mind. So you're sculpting an edge according to a picture in your mind, and you're doing it on a groomed, prepared surface. So I think preparing the surface of the stone is really the first thing I think about. And then in a complete kit, that would mean a surfacing tool, a lapping plate, something to flatten the tool. And that is the first product that Nano Hone brought to market. We came out with a line of lapping plates even before we started making stones, because I really feel that I feel it's that important. I think the lapping plate is, or surface control is the most important part of a sharpening kit. So, you know, I would rather have one stone and a lapping plate than 5 stones and no lapping plate. And then the way you hold the stone, I think, is very important. And traditionally, people have used wooden blocks with wedges. They've used clamps with screws. And I think the most important thing is that the stone not move. The stone be really rock solid, you know, held right in place. And so that's why I developed this big, heavy aluminum stage that I call it. And I think it really is the stage because we bring all the actors, you know, onto the stage. We bring all the different tools up on top of the stage to use them. So I think holding the stone, so we've got surface control, holding the stone. And then I think the stone itself, you know, what kind of abrasive? Is it coarse enough? Is how friable is it? Friability means how quickly it breaks down as you're using it. So a stone that's really friable, it doesn't load up, but it hollows very quickly. And so that rounds over your blade. So, you know, getting that balance of resilience in the surface of the stone and controlling your friability. So I think the stone, the way you hold the stone, the stage, and the lapping plate to control the surface of the stone. I think those are the 3 key parts of a great sharpening system. Yeah, I think that's just wonderful. You know, anybody who spends time in Japan comes to the conclusion very quickly that the way to get along in Japan is to be thankful all the time. You know, and so always thank polite people in Japan. It's just a really great, easy to dig into mnemonic, and I really like that. So, you know, and these are steps that Murray and I really agree on completely. You know, it's a process that we've taught in this video, and I think it's pretty bulletproof. I think you can apply these steps to just about any hand sharpening situation. You do not. Absolutely not. You know, sharpening is infinite. There's just no end to it. You start doing it, you get better at it, you know, and the learning curve is usually a little steep in the beginning, but then it flattens out, and you have a pretty long plateau before you get to the next steep part. And you know, each plateau is another level of understanding. And, I'm still finding new plateaus. I've been doing this since I was a kid. I started sharpening when I was like 8 years old. And I'm still finding new plateaus, and working with Murray this week, there were a lot of little things. I was like, I like that. I'm going to pull that into the way. And I think Murray had the same feeling. And, together we've put together this really tight method, and we're going to go out there and start introducing it to people. I think that's going to be really exciting. Oh my God. Murray cut a hockey puck in half. I've never seen that. That was, and it happened because we were looking for something else to cut. And he found this hockey puck on the floor of my workshop. My kids played ice hockey, and there was an old hockey puck. He said, I think I can cut it. I said, really? Hockey pucks are hard. And, he says, I'm going to try. And he did first time. He didn't even practice. He just got right in front of the camera and he did it. I'm like, man, that is so cool. So, you can get creative and have fun with this too. It doesn't have to be too serious. Yeah, the first thing is to assess what you got to do. Look at the situation and give it some consideration before you dig right in. Don't just start sharpening. Give it some thought. So assess what's in front of you. And then Murray and I both think thinning is just real important. You almost can't do too much thinning to a knife. You can, but it's a hard threshold to get to. And then you want to profile the knife. You want to give it a geometry. You want to give it a shape. And, it may already have a line that you're happy with. It may not. You may want to give it a different line and shape and form. So you're going to profile it. And then once you've done that, you're going to polish it out, and that polishing can be really quick, or you can give it a whole day. And you can really, you can get into using natural stones and looking for a bokeh, in the finish, or you can just do it real quickly and get right back to work. So that's the one part of the process that's really expandable. And then finally, jointing. And jointing is a technique that I started doing about 20 years ago, and I've worked at it over the years. And it's actually taking the edge and using the carefully surfaced stone to cut away the burr in the surface of the stone, rather than trying to break it off with some kind of stropping technique, or all those things break it off. And when I look at that under a microscope, it always bothers me because it's jagged, it's broken off. And I've always wanted to be able to, very smoothly cut that off. So that's the joining technique. And we pulled it all together, and, always thank polite people in Japan. It just works. It's a nice, tight process that, you can apply every time you sharpen. Yeah, Murray has been teaching this forever, and I think it's just great. Taking your thumb and putting it on the spine of the knife and putting your fingers down the edge and very lightly rubbing them a little bit to actually get a picture in your mind of what the edge, feels like or looks like in your mind. And to that, I would even add, close your eyes. When you get comfortable, just close your eyes, and then you can really get that picture of what the blade looks like. It's like playing an instrument, and you're tuning the instrument. You sharpen, and then you can see more in your mind's eye. And I find that very exciting, and I think that is a really important technique that really all sharpeners should incorporate in their methods. And I'm really happy that it's part of our method now. Yeah, I kind of want my tools to disappear. I don't want my sharpening stones and stage and lapping plate to get in the way of a sharpener's process. I want them to just naturally be part of the process and kind of just melt right out into the background. And the focus should really be on what the sharpener is achieving with the edges they're trying to create. So that edge creation process is really what it's all about. And I just want to help make that happen easier. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're cooking up all kinds of things. You know, Murray and I are both pilots, and we flew together for the first time a few days ago. And we're looking forward to flying around the country and teaching people about thanking polite Japanese people, you know. It's teaching people our method, you know, the Carter-Stanley method. We're cooking up all kinds of ideas. So I'm excited about that. I had a wonderful career. I'm 57 years old. I've traveled all over the world. I've met thousands and thousands of people, and I've really been blessed to get this far and be able to, you know, make things for a living, which is really exciting. But I couldn't have gotten here by myself. You know, my teachers in Japan, Mr. Nikura, he helped me so much. Mr. Kuroda, they helped me so much, and they were so generous with their time, and because of their generosity, I've been able to have a great life. And I just want to say that I really appreciate, you know, what those people gave me.